On how to place the rear brake pads and rotors on a W221 S550. So first things first is we're going to go ahead and loosen the lug nuts. Just loosen them, don't completely remove them, just loosen them enough with our tire iron, and then we're going to jack the car up, then remove the rest of the bolts and the tire. Okay, now we've loosened those up, we're going to reach under with our jack. We're going to go to this jack point and we're going to jack the car up. Put it on some jack stands, and then we'll go ahead and remove the tire. Okay, pop the wheel off, loosen those up. Make sure to put a jack stand right there. It's nice and tense, just in case anything gets loose, it's ready to catch and save my butt. Still gonna keep the jack here, I'm gonna lower it a little bit so it rests on the jack stand. And now we're gonna start removing the brakes. So very simple, I grab this, and we're gonna push and pry it out. Pry that out with the screwdriver. I'm going to pull that off. Then you're going to take your 18mm socket, either this long one or a shorter one. And you're going to go for these two bolts, which are 18mm right there. This one, the top right there. And then there's another one at the bottom. 18mm socket or wrench, and you're gonna go for this bolt right here, 18mm. And there's another one at the bottom, right here, another 18mm. Keep in mind you're gonna need a lot of elbow grease, maybe a breaker bar, friends, a few Hail Marys, rosaries, and prayers to get those off. Once you get those two off, this caliper will come right out, and everything will be a whole lot easier. Okay, quick heads up. On this bottom piece, this bottom bolt, I couldn't get my socket wrench in, and the only wrench I didn't have was an 18mm. So that was a real pain in the butt. So I lowered the jack car into this jack stand right here, which caused this to move up, giving me more clearance. And then used my breaker bar and pushed up, and I was able to break that loose. I made sure to move this black cable out of the way, just to make sure I don't goof with it. And then this is the brake sensor, brake wear and tear sensor. I unhinged, just in case. I don't want to tear any wires. All right, so I'm going to remove that bolt and then be able to pop this caliper off. And we'll go from there. Bolt out. I just wiggled. Yet again, just wiggle the brake sensor out of here. It plugs right into there. I just pulled that out just to be safe. And here comes off the brake caliper. And those are my two pads, which got a lot of tread left in them, but what the hey. Go ahead and replace them now since I already, I plan on replacing the fronts. All right, so the top brake pad just falls right off. This bottom one that is connected to the piston, well, that's held in by some spring. So, you know, Mercedes has a thing for specialty tools. So I like to use a flathead screwdriver. There's really no specialty tools needed for most of these jobs. You can figure a way around it. So, I'm just gonna pry, and you can see, give it a little force, some elbow grease, and it will pop right off. You can hear it coming off as it is. I'm gonna have to put the camera down, so, oh, actually, there you go. I got that out, and then voila. Remove that, and as you can see, the brake sensor is attached to it. The brake sensor pulls out real easily. You just wiggle it out with a screwdriver, and it'll come right on out. Now, to remove the brake rotor, which a lot of mechanics like to call a specialty job where they upcharge you, all you have to do is take a T30 Torx, unscrew this little screw off, then take a mallet and pop this, and the rotor will break loose. And you can pull it off and replace it. That's about it. Well, one more thing though. Actually, so when checking as to when you want to replace these rotors, you want to look to see if there's wear and tear. So like a record, this should feel, you know, like you see those little grooves. It reminds me of a vinyl record. But you should see how smooth it feels. Be careful that the car is a little cool before you touch it, but you know, there should be little grooves, but nothing so much that your thumb can pick up on it. Because what I learned from my brother is a lot of my rough ride, the vibrations was actually coming from bad rotors. Rotors typically go bad with age, but also by not replacing brakes in a timely order. So as I can see here, mine are pretty smooth, actually pretty good, which is awesome, means I get to save some money. But I'm just gonna pop this off as demonstration, just so, well, everyone out there has knowledge of how to do it. Okay folks, and I popped it off. Also, make sure, didn't mention this, but make sure your emergency brake is off when you come to remove the rear rotors. Wait up to that very last step and make sure your car is in park and nice and secure, because otherwise the emergency brake shoes will actually hold on to the rotor. Alrighty, and then you basically replace it, line it up, and you're good to go. Good opportunity to take a wire brush and scrub this all down. Make sure everything's nice and flat and flush, so you have a nice even contact when you put your new rotor on. So we're gonna put our new rotor on, match all the holes to previously, then take our screw and screw it right back on, and we'll move right back to the brakes. Okay, we'll make sure all the holes are lined up. Let's stick that screw in and screw it on in. So go ahead and pry this piece off with your hands. These two guide rods will come out. This is gonna be a good time to clean it and lubricate every moving part you can see with some brake grease and lubricant. So we're gonna take some Bosch grease that came with the brakes, and we're gonna lubricate the area here, here, and on the guides to where the brake pads slide against. And so as you can see from this upright position, I had lubricated these, and I lubricated the guides on which the brake pad will slide against. So I line the caliper, line the brake pad onto here, and then we're gonna go ahead and slide it right back into those grooves. All right, and then make sure to put a little extra pressure so you can push this spring into that piston. Okay, once I got that caliper on, I went ahead and put this one on here on the other side. I mean, this brake pad on the other side. And with some jimming, I'm able to get it right back on. And we're gonna align the holes in the back so we can reinsert our 18mm bolts, and we'll be good to go. So once we got that in, we're gonna just go ahead and tighten that one out. And tighten that one up as well, and then we'll be on our next step of installing the brake sensor, and then we'll finish up. Okay, time for the brake sensor. Go ahead and make sure to stick the actual sensor part outward, so actually can be triggered. We're gonna slide it right into that slot. Go ahead and just push the sensor in like that. Go into a little pin slot right there. And I'm gonna take the connector and plug it in. And we're that much closer. So let's make sure to get that flush. Okay, as you can see, I used a screwdriver to pry this in. So these are tense and it holds this. And the reason it's super important to replace that bracket, well, you could reuse it if it's not included in your brand new brake hardware, but it's always nice to replace this. So that holds, that gives everything nice and tense on this front brake pad right here. And now we're gonna reattach, well, there should be some guides that hold this sensor wire in place, and we'll go ahead and okay, we're good to go. And then at this point, we're gonna reattach the tire and tighten the lug bolts by hand. Then we'll remove this jack stand, use the hydraulic stand to lower the car, and then we'll finish torquing these. We'll be good to go.